Emily and I just went to the Ultimate RV show in Denver, Colorado, and we thought this would be a good time, since we just did some walkthroughs, to review the 5 things that came into consideration while we purchased our base camp, and those same 5 considerations that were taken into account when we purchased our Flying Cloud. Like I said, there's 5 broad categories, and because we have an Airstream, we're gonna call each category a Rivet just for fun. One is size matters. You need to think about what you're gonna be doing with your travel trailer or your RV. You need to understand how many people you're gonna be traveling with or what layout you want for your RV. All those things can impact what size rig you get. In terms of large RV resorts, most are going to accommodate just about any size rig with plenty of back-end spots as well as pull-throughs. But your level of comfortability may need to be taken into account when deciding what size rig you're looking at.
Our audio went out, but the idea here was to give you perspective of how far away I was during the RV show. So you'll see I'm putting up distances here so you know how long each of these trailers was and how far away from the back of your truck that is.
It's taking forever.
You may even want to decide at this point whether you want a drivable or a towable. Early on in our journey, we decided we wanted to tow, and we decided that we wanted a relatively short RV. There were 2 things that came into play when we decided we wanted a smaller RV when we bought our base camp. And that first thing was neither of us was terribly comfortable towing a trailer. So we had both towed trailers in the past, but neither of us had extensive experience doing so. So we wanted something where we'd feel comfortable changing lanes, driving down the highway and things like that, and also have something that we were comfortable learning how to back up in. As it turns out, it's actually easier to back up a longer trailer than a shorter trailer. The second factor is, at the time, I owned a Tacoma and Emily owned a 4Runner, and we wanted whatever we got to be towable by those trucks. We didn't want to have to go upgrade our truck in order to tow the rig that we wanted. We wanted the rig that we wanted to conform to the trucks that we had. Those 2 factors landed us in the base camp, which at the time only came in a 16-foot. We had enough space for ourselves, our dogs, we had a small kitchen and a wet bath, and it provided everything we wanted in terms of price and quality. There were and are a ton of options in this category, so we spent time looking at probably 50 different trailers by different brands and different layouts. The base camp for us is what just landed for us. At that time, we wanted to just understand brands, what quality they had, what the price points looked like. But you kind of have to make these decisions early on, whether you need a full kitchen or if a sink will do. You need to decide if you want a full bath, which is a separate shower and toilet, or if you're okay with a wet bath. If you're okay with a wet bath, you can get really small. If you tried to do that same configuration, a small trailer with both a shower and a toilet room, it may take up more space than you're willing to give up. If you're looking to carry a 4-wheeler with you or something like that, a motorcycle, you may want to look at toy haulers. The next thing in terms of size is you want to think about where you want to go. If you're looking to off-road, you probably want something smaller that's higher off the ground. We just looked at the Berea, and the Berea not only has that, but it has an articulating hitch so that your truck and your trailer can articulate separately. If you're looking just to be at KOAs and large RV resorts, really any size is going to be okay. We mentioned that earlier. But if you're looking at national parks, we do know that there is a size limit at some of them. We've heard that that's 25 feet, but we've had traveling companions with a 30-foot trailer that have had no issues. The last thing I'm going to mention in terms of size is that you need to think about where you're going to store your RV. We didn't think about that early on in our journey, but we had to find somewhere to put it. Something to think about there is a lot of RV storage locations are going to charge you by the foot. So the longer your RV, the more expensively your monthly bill is going to be to cover that storage. So moving on to Rivet number 2 is price. RVs can come with a very high price tag, so it's important to set a budget and stick to that budget. It's also a good idea to think about what you're going to want as far as items inside your RV, the insurance cost, the storage cost, and any ongoing maintenance that you may occur during the ownership of your RV. These are all going to come into play when you're thinking about price. When we started looking at RVs, we thought about price, we set a budget. We knew we didn't want to go too crazy, even though we loved some of the larger, more luxurious RVs, because we weren't totally sure at the time that we were going to love the camping aspect of this. We both like being outside. We have dogs that like being outside. And Emily and I both love to travel, but it wasn't a certainty that we were going to enjoy this. And so we wanted to stay on the low end. I mentioned it just a minute ago, but something we had not thought about was the cost of storage. So while we did stay within our budget and we knew what our insurance was going to cost, we had not quoted out storage anywhere. Luckily, we were in Las Vegas where storage was really inexpensive, but the inexpensive came with a storage location that neither Emily nor I were comfortable with. So after a couple of months, we ended up moving to a different RV storage location, which wasn't terribly expensive, but it also included indoor storage where they were plugging in every RV, so you constantly had a charge to your battery. Generally speaking, the larger your RV, the more expensive it's going to be. That being said, a lot of Class Bs or vans are going to have a very high price tag because of how they're built. I mentioned insurance earlier, so we do think it's important to call your insurance agent or multiple insurance agents to get a quote for what it's going to cost to cover your RV. A lot of people are surprised at how expensive that can be. Definitely quote that out and make a choice that you're comfortable with. We were first-time RVers and we didn't really know all the things that we were going to need with us. Luckily, a lot of RV dealerships will provide you with like a starter kit that includes a water hose, a sewer hose, possibly a surge protector. But you're going to need kitchenware, you're going to need towels, you're going to need all those things that you have at the house that you kind of take for granted. Luckily, the first couple times you go, you can actually stock that from the house and not worry about having it specific to your RV. With us being now 5 years into this, we do have a specific set of sheets and a specific set of towels that go to the RV. We bring those home after a trip, we wash them, and we keep them in a tote to bring back to the RV next time we go on a trip. If you do get a starter kit, don't count on that being all-inclusive. Like I said, it may include a surge protector, but most probably does not. Ultimately, your decisions in part 1 can impact the price that you're going to pay for your RV. So use that as a starting point to start setting your budget. Moving on to Rivet number 3, we're going to talk about what type of RV you're looking for and whether it's towable or not, meaning do you need a tow vehicle. So starting with a Class A, this is a motorhome or classic motorhome or a drivable coach or a diesel pusher. There's a lot of different names that these go by. The Class B and Class C are all great because they're all self-contained, meaning your RV is actually drivable. You don't need a tow vehicle. Class A's are wonderful because you actually can travel in the living area and you have access to the living area from the cockpit. So you don't have to get out of a vehicle, go into the trailer. It's really just kind of in and out from where you are. Something to think about if you're looking at a Class A is that most states do not require any specific or special license to drive them. But you may live in a state where there is a requirement. Arkansas, for instance, requires a CDL or a Class B license for anything over 26,000 pounds, while Wisconsin requires the same for anything over 45 feet. So you can see that there's some differences in how they enact the law, but it is definitely something you need to look at prior to purchasing a Class A. Class A's are often the most luxurious of all the RVs we talk about, sometimes including dishwashers or clothes washers and dryers. So definitely something to think about as you're looking at a Class A is how much you want there. The next thing is a Class B or a van. These are excellent for easy camping. You can basically park them anywhere. In fact, where I work, there are probably a dozen or so that park there every morning and appear to be catching some sleep before they go to the gym in the morning. The reason I mention that is because that just is to highlight that they can fit in a standard parking spot. Vans are small and maneuverable and often have the same amenities as a Class C or a small towable. And lastly, Class Bs can get excellent gas mileage. While a diesel pusher may be getting something like 8 to 10 miles per gallon, vans have the capability of getting 18 to 20 miles per gallon. Moving on to Class Cs, they're somewhere between the Class A and the Class B in that they're drivable like the Class B is, but offer a lot of the same amenities as the Class A. Class Cs are more likely to have a separate bath and shower than a Class B is, and are often more affordable than a Class A while offering a lot of the same features. Maintenance on a Class C is very similar to that of a standard vehicle because you're just really on a Super Duty chassis. The last thing on our list is a towable or a travel trailer. And the reason we picked the travel trailer is because we like the fact that you're towing with a vehicle. So when you get to where you're going, you unhook, you set up your camp, and you're able to leave in that vehicle without having to pack up everything to leave again. Class A's and Class C's are likely to be able to tow a vehicle behind you, but now you're dealing with two motors, both the one for the RV and the one in the drivable vehicle. Smaller travel trailers are less likely to be feature rich, so a 16-foot like our base camp is likely to have a wet bath and not a separate shower and toilet, whereas a 30-foot is more likely to have that separate shower and toilet and possibly a door going into a standard bathroom. All of the RVs we've mentioned will vary in size, so you can go from very small to very large. So there is that decision to make early on what type of vehicle you're looking for or what you're looking to do. In terms of the towable, and one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about the difference in vehicle types is that when you do make your purchase, you'll need to make a decision whether the RV you're looking for is towable with the vehicle that you currently have, or if you're going to need to upgrade your vehicle. In our case, and I mentioned it earlier, we didn't want to upgrade our vehicle, so we were looking for something within the towable range of both our 4Runner and our Tacoma. Something else to look at is what kind of fuel you'll be using. For longer RVs, diesel might be an easier option because truck stops along the highways are a little bit more accessible. Local fueling stations can be a little bit of a pain, and we've had some issues here and there where someone may have blocked us off. Not that we can't get out, but we need to wait for someone else to move before we can get both our truck and our trailer out of a standard fueling station. Moving on to Rivet number 4, and this one we're going to call being meticulous. So in this section, we want to talk about what do you want versus what does the RV have. Know what you want from your experience. So do you want a microwave? And if you have a microwave, are you going to have power frequently enough to be able to use it? Are you looking for a queen bed or 2 twin beds? This is something that can help narrow down your search. You might want to think about whether you want a dinette or a table and chairs. Some of the larger Class A's are going to have that table and chairs, and some smaller RVs are going to have a dinette. The dinette may turn into a bed, and you want to make sure that you go through that process of turning it into a bed and turning it back. Maybe having the person who is going to sleep on that dinette bed lay down on it so that they know they're going to fit and that it's comfortable for them. There's a ton of different options here, but some things that just come to mind are whether you want air conditioning or don't want air conditioning. If you do want air conditioning, do you want 2 AC units? Are you in a longer RV? Another thing to think about is if you're going to be camping off grid, whether it makes sense to have solar added at the factory or if it's something you might want to do later. If all you want is somewhere to sleep and you're okay to cook outside, a teardrop may be in your future. Something else that we have kind of battled with is whether we want a TV or not. So in our Airstream base camp, that wasn't even a choice. At the time, they didn't have an option for that. I still don't think they have an option for it. But that never really impacted what we were doing with our trailer. In our Flying Cloud, we do have a TV, but it's not something that we've used yet. If you want as much space as possible, then looking at a Class B is probably not the right thing for you. You may be wanting to look at a Class C or a Class A, maybe with multiple slide outs to get you that space. Most importantly, spend time with your prospective trailer. Make the dinette into a bed, make the bed into a dinette. Turn the faucet on and off. Understand how that's going to be in your cooking. Prep a fake meal. Stand in the shower and take a fake shower. I don't know what it is, but do those things that make you understand your comfort level within that RV. Sit down at a dinner table and envision where your whole family is going to sit or where your traveling companions are going to sit. Do you have enough space? There's things like that you kind of need to go through to understand if you're getting the right thing for you. If you're buying used, inspect the RV and be thorough about it. Look for water leaks, look for scratches, all those types of things that may indicate something may have gone wrong. Don't be afraid to ask the seller to take it somewhere to have them inspect it. That'll give you the peace of mind that it's in good condition. Even if you're buying new, know what your warranty is, know how long that lasts, and know your plan for writing down everything that needs to be corrected and when you're going to get it into service in order to have all those things corrected. Rivet number 5, and the last thing on our list, is plan for the future. Do you know what your long-term RV goals are? If you're buying small now, do you plan on upgrading to a larger RV in the future when your family gets larger, or expanding to a larger RV because you want a little bit more space? Do you plan on downsizing? Do you have a larger family now and you're going to downsize once they leave the house? It's something that you should think about, because RVs are going to generally have a large depreciation value or large depreciation, especially at the beginning. So thinking ahead will help you make sure that your RV is going to meet your needs for years to come. It's also going to help you to understand what depreciation you're going to take when you trade in or downsize or upsize later. We started small, knowing that if we loved it, we were probably going to upgrade to a larger RV. At the time, we put all that together and said, this is the amount of money we're willing to budget for our first RV. This is what we think we're going to get hit with in depreciation. And ultimately, down the road, this is what we're comfortable with. In our case, we got lucky in that we took almost no depreciation on our base camp from when we bought it in 2018 until we sold it to get our Flying Cloud. The good news was the base camp helped us understand what we liked about camping, what we didn't like about it, and what we wanted in an RV in the future. We started off small and were able to kind of build up from there. If you've never camped before, you may want to consider something like Outdoorsy to rent an RV. So Outdoorsy is a lot like Airbnb, where you can rent a trailer or a camper from someone, pick it up, drive it where you're going, and park it for the weekend or for the week or for your trip. The nice thing about this is it allows you to test drive not only that RV, but a lot of the features that are included in it. If you're not comfortable driving one yet, a lot of these services will even take it to a campground for you so that you don't have to drive it, but you get the experience of camping in it. This can be a wonderful way of understanding whether you like camping or not and what features you do and don't want in your RV. Do your homework, research different brands, RV models, features, whatever it is, read reviews and watch videos. Talk to current owners and know what they like and don't like about their RV. Be cautious with this because people become evangelical about the brand that they use, but most people tend to be honest. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. We hope you'll like the video, subscribe to our channel, and watch for more videos like this and our RV tours.